We spent the past couple of years in a crazy hot market. Louisville home sales decline as demand outpaces supply. Effective communication is at the core of any situation. If you master these two ideas, you'll have a chance of being successful at residential real estate marketing. I think you need to be looking for investment opportunities that move the needle. The market will never crash if demand exceeds supply. This is what I've been telling you all along.
This is the Jay Pitts Show.
And we're back, folks. Welcome back to the Jay Pitts Show on Talk Radio 1080. I am your host, Jay Pitts. Back for episode number 2. Ryan Harris, my co-host. What's up, man?
What's going on, Jay? I tell you what, that is a good intro.
I can take no credit. Hannah did all the wizardry with respect to that. But, I said those words.
You did?
I did say those words. Some candid, some scripted. We're not really sure. But it makes for a good little intro. It makes me bob my head a little bit.
Yeah, it gets us ready.
Yeah, for sure. So what we got in store for us today, Ryan?
Oh, we got a lot of good things, but I think first let's talk about the Louisville real estate stats this week and what they look like and maybe where they're headed.
Dude, absolutely. So, we're going to get into like some myths or some predictions or some things that some of the national media said here in a little bit about the real estate market here in 2023. But really important to understand what's going on right here at home. I do an analysis on a weekly basis. I look at several stats. 2 are probably most important. Number 1, how many listings coming to market? Because we all have, if you followed residential real estate the last few years, inventory is paramount to the health of the real estate market. Many have predicted that inventory will balloon or increase this year. It hasn't happened. We were essentially on par this week versus the same week in 2022 with the amount of listings coming to market. 274 this week of 2023, 286 the same week last year. Virtually no difference, 4% difference. The thing that is really compelling, right, is that cumulatively, we have actually had less inventory come to market this year than we did the, same amount of time in 2022. I think that is counter to the narrative. Okay, if you heard, speaking of the intro, you cannot have a housing crash, okay, when, demand exceeds supply. Okay, now demand is another thing. We measure demand in a couple of ways. Pending contracts, closed sales, specifically closed sales are down 508 from the same time last year. So a substantial decrease in demand. Okay, now, if you were around this time last year, you know that we had a slow end to 2021. Okay, the market kind of, was waiting, not very choppy waters, just very, very still. And then boom, as soon as the tables turned, much the same as it did this year, demand shot through the roof. We've seen demand shoot up. It's just not anywhere near what it was last year. But supply is constraining the market. You can't have a crash. Prices are staying high, right? So again, we look at supply, we look at demand, the simplest forms of economics. You're not going to have a crash. You're not going to have a crash because there's nothing to buy or sell.
Yeah, you mentioned, so home sales are down. I think you said somewhere around 508
units
from this time last year.
Mm-hmm. From the same time period, from January 1 to end of February, roughly mid to end of February, right? Down 508 units.
So yeah, that's very interesting to me because you hear that and then you immediately think of headlines you might read in articles that just mention home sales down X percent, which sounds like doomsday. But then when you really dive into it, you see home sales are down, but homes are worth more than last year.
Well, of course. And doesn't it make sense? Homes are more expensive because rates are substantially higher and prices have inclined. And a substantial number of transactions have been borrowed forward in the years of 2021 and 2022 that may not have happened until 23 or 24, right? People upgraded sooner. People moved faster because conditions were favorable to do so. Now, here's a really interesting thing before we move on. I can see there's a light there for a question coming. Really, really interesting is when you compare demand to the amount of demand we had in 21, in 20, and in 19. So do you have a guess as to how 2022 compares to those years?
No, I don't want to make a bad guess, so go ahead.
Okay, so we're down from 21, but only 109 units. Not 500 units like we are.
109.
109. So 20% of the deficit that we are versus 2022. We actually have a surplus compared to the year of 2020. Now remember, this is before COVID hit, so the demand was normal. It was unaffected, right? It was, not post-COVID world. It was pre-COVID world, right? We're 61 closed sales more than we were in 2020. Nobody said 2020 was a housing crash.
Right.
Okay.
It was actually considered a good market. It
was a great market.
That seemed crazy at the time.
Yeah. And I've often said that the most normal year that we've had in a long time in real estate was 2019, right? Because 2019 didn't have any of those shenanigans, right? So we have 259 more closed sales right now, okay, from start of the year to the current moment than we had the same time period in 2019. 259 more closed sales. Nobody said the market was crashing then.
And that's with less inventory too.
And we have less inventory. Even less inventory.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
In fact, I could tell you exactly the number. We have had 405 fewer properties come to market, okay, this year than we had in 2019, and we have done 259 more sales.
Yeah, so all I'm hearing, this supply issue is getting worse.
It is.
We're going to keep covering this each week, and it's going to be very interesting to follow and see how it changes and probably gets worse. I really don't know how this problem's solved. People that are locked into 2.5% rates, they're probably not going to move unless they have to, unless there's a big life change. So it's going to be very interesting to keep covering this.
No, there's some stats floating out there, and I don't have any to present right now. But yeah, we call those people mortgage locked, right? They're locked into a home that they upgraded, which was more expensive than they ever expected to be able to afford, at a rate lower than they ever expected to get, probably sooner than they ever expected to be able to upgrade. And the folks that are I talk about generations a lot. If you follow my social media, you'll see we just did a 4-part series on the generations in residential real estate. I can tell you each one is in a very different situation. You have the Generation X, okay, which is kind of like the most in limbo because they've been homeowners longer and they probably have some equity, but they probably just upgraded to their forever home and they locked in, okay? The millennial generation just upgraded prematurely to their forever home. A lot of them, the ones that bought early, the ones that were late to the party just bought a bigger first home than they ever expected. Gen Z, a lot of them bought if they could, but some of them were priced out of the market. The boomers are the ones, the baby boomers, right? They're the ones that are really sitting pretty. If I'm a real estate agent, I'm focusing on listings. In fact, if you listen to some of the advertisements I run on this station Monday through Friday, you'll see that, we talk directly to a lot of these folks who's had their home appreciate far beyond what they expected, but they don't have a mortgage, or at least a large part of them don't, or they have very small balances. And they have life changes that require that they look and consider moving just like anybody else, right? They want to be close to family. They want warmer climates. They want, one level living, that kind of stuff. Dude, they're sitting pretty.
Yeah. You were talking about the millennials there that probably bought a home maybe a little more expensive or bigger than they should have a few years ago, and at the time looked like a maybe iffy decision. Now it looks like the smartest thing ever. I bought my first home a few years ago and bought a smaller one, lower price. I wish I would have made the worst decision at the time and bought a bigger home.
Well, it's economies of scale, right?
Yeah.
The law of big numbers, et cetera. Like, $1 million appreciating at, 13% or whatever the home value gains we've had, goes up it goes up 130,000, right? But 100,000 goes up 13,000 on a 13%. So, this is definitely a rich get richer kind of scenario.
Okay. Real quick before we go to our first break, quick question. So can a VA buyer purchase a property if the yard is in a floodplain, but the main structure isn't?
Yeah.
This came from an agent in the brokerage over the past week, and I think it's a pretty interesting question that maybe the listeners would like to know.
So I love this idea, and I think we're going to continue this, call it maybe from the field kind of situations, an idea that Ryan had. This comes from our team Slack channel, right? An agent poses a question to the group. The answer is yes. Any financing type, okay, you cannot withhold the ability to obtain financing because of the status of whether a property is in a floodplain or not. It's just a matter of whether flood insurance is required. So here's the thing. any sort of financing type, VA is no different than any other. There's a difference between whether the home itself, okay, or just the land is in the floodplain. Okay, the land cannot be damaged. It gets wet if there's a flood, right? And it dries out. You cannot destroy land by flood. The 100-year floodplain could, if the home is attached, could flood and damage the property. That's the actual collateral, right? The biggest portion of the collateral. So flood insurance is not required if the base elevation of the home itself is not in the actual floodplain. If just a piece of the land touches, no flood insurance is required. So that's a little tactical advantage. Now, we always want to give the disclaimer, talk to your insurance agent, talk to your underwriter. You may find a bad underwriter. That's why you got to get a good lender like our friends over at Motto Mortgage. You'll hear commercials for them right here on the show. But plug for Andrew Dow. But here's the thing, and actually he's the one that answered that question on the Slack channel too, by the way.
Yeah.
So
it's really helpful to have him in the Slack channel for the brokerage and team.
Dude, I love it. Yeah. Love it. So anyway, folks, I think that's about all the time we got for you here in segment 1. You know, this is the J Pitt Show, real talk, real estate, real
news, real talk, real estate.
I knew I was going to butcher it. Come back after the break. We'll talk a little bit more here on Talk Radio 1080.
Welcome back to the J Pitt Show, Talk Radio 1080. Jay, we've talked a little bit about how you got into real estate. We haven't done a deep dive yet. You gave a brief little history, but let's dive in a little deeper. You know, you are known for real estate in Louisville. A lot of people know you. A lot of people come to you for advice, whether it's other agents or even other brokers or just people looking to make a move. So, you know, let's get into, how did you get into this? We can even start when you were a kid to right now, and, you know, how it started.
Well, I think I said in episode 1, my dad's a real estate broker, property management company owner. And I feel kind of like the car dealer kid, you know, that's worked in all the departments and that's being prepped to run the dealership someday. But the truth is, Dad really did groom me. I don't think he intended for me to get into real estate. And truthfully, firstborn, stubborn, actually a parent of 2 firstborns, married another firstborn, about as stubborn as it gets, man. And contrarian, and didn't want to listen to anybody and didn't want to be told what to do. So I didn't really want to get into real estate, and purely because I didn't want to follow in Dad's footsteps. I didn't want people to tell me that I was only successful because you did what Dad did, right? So, you know, I rationalized it a lot of different ways, but as I was... And when I say he groomed me, like he had me, you know, renting apartments, you know, in his property management company the second I got a driver's license, right? I was answering the phones before that, taking rental applications.
Did you clean up job sites?
I did. I did clean up job sites. He gave me a lot of menial labor also. Did a lot of maintenance on the rentals, did a lot of job site cleanup on new construction sites where he was building.
I remember doing that growing up, and I always remember it was the worst after it rained. Dude. It rained, and you picked up the soggy cardboard that's like half of it's stuck under the mud, and then all these bottles and stuff just everywhere. It was the worst when it rained.
Dude, gross, because like this is not even in Louisville where like they actually like keep a close watch. I'm not trying to put the building inspectors on blast in Hardin County, but out in the country, they get away with a little more. We used to have something called, out of city limits, they had something called a burn pit. You ever filled up a burn pit?
I'm pretty sure people did that in city limits too.
Oh, that's also true. Anyway, no, yeah. So Dad would drop me off at about, 8:00 in the morning, and I'd have like a wheelbarrow and like a push broom and like some hand tools and a like big,
See how many of those black construction
big row
bags
of black construction trash bags. And like he would, usually have the foundation guy dig a burn pit because, we were out in Rineyville and Meade County and Vine Grove. Anyway, digress. That was fun. Menial labor was fun. Not, but, character building for sure. Renting apartments. I had a lawn mowing business for a while, rented apartments. When I got into college, Dad suggested that I go to work for my uncle at a car dealership. Selling used vehicles. That was my summer and my Christmas job. And frankly, I was pretty good at it. I made quite a bit of money. I was treating my friends quite often because, they're working for $8 an hour, and I was making, a couple thousand a month. And they thought that was pretty cool. So a lot of point of sale. when I got out of college, I had been playing summer baseball. I played baseball at Bellarmine and played in a summer league with a bunch of guys that were ex-college and pro players. And a lot of them have gotten into the mortgage business. This was like around 2004 or 5, right? And so the mortgage business was hot now we all know why, right? Because they're giving loans to anybody with a pulse. But they were talking about how much money they made. And I thought, you know what? This is a perfect sideline business to real estate where I could take what I knew, what I understood. There's point of sale, right? There's customer service. My goal at that time was to open a mortgage company. Oddly enough, I opened a mortgage company, but as a real estate broker so many years later. But yeah, man, I did that. I worked for my dad's company as their preferred lender. Wasn't actually employed by him, but he referred me quite a bit of business, helped his team in 2005. I think I said on the last episode, he was top 10 in the country on the Wall Street Journalist. I was their preferred lender and, had a ton of experience, man. That's the great thing about being a mortgage loan officer when you're very involved with your agents that refer you and you're a deal saver and a problem solver is you get to see so many more transactions. I mean, I was doing 20 loans a month, whereas a real estate agent, I might have done 4 or 5. Now, in retrospect, I think I probably should have just started selling real estate sooner. I did the mortgage thing for about 4 to 5 years and was kind of tired of it and wanted to genuinely be self-employed, not work for a bank, not work for a mortgage company, and kind of made that transition. That was actually December of 2007.
Yeah. I've always found that interesting how agents are just strictly 1099, but
loan officers
aren't.
I think it's risk. Frankly, the banks have so much more risk. I don't think a bank can give you access to their financial assets, right? And not have the employer-employee relationship and the ability to compel certain actions and not others. Really, I felt when I made that move, I felt genuinely self-employed. I was always commission-based, right? That's something Dad taught me. To be commission-based, work for yourself, not work for others. There's less risk in working for yourself than others. That's something I learned at a very young age. But, I didn't feel genuinely self-employed until I got into real estate full-time.
Gotcha. So you made the switch to real estate and you were an independent agent for a while. And then you made the choice to start growing a real estate team. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So when I had built a pretty good mortgage business, I was making 6 figures at a pretty young age, and things, it meant more then because things cost a lot less. So, now you say you make $100,000, like people are like, oh yeah, so what? Yeah. But at 25, 23, 24, 25, in the early 2000s, like that was pretty successful. And, I gotten married. We had student loans. We had car payments. We bought a home, because your lifestyle expands, right, to your income. And I was going back to zero, right? Going back to zero. My wife was working in nonprofit, didn't pay a whole lot, right? She was doing something she was really passionate about, which was great. And I didn't want her to have to make any sort of sacrifice. So I needed to be successful quickly. And I was. I famously say that I worked 90 hours that first week, that first year, 90 hours a week. And, I didn't have kids, so I was able to. Wasn't incredibly balanced, but I didn't need to be incredibly balanced at that point in my life. Now, a few years later, when I did have kids and I was still acting the same way, that was a problem, and we had to fix it. But, building a team for me is about 2 things. It's about not yielding or wasting opportunities that are bestowed upon you, right? Which come from respect and appreciation and, clients appreciating what you've done for them. So I got to a point where I couldn't physically handle all the opportunities that I could generate. And it's about probably more than that, helping people, because I had individuals that I had come across. First one ever was a good friend by the name of Eric Scroggin, who owns another Remax office here in town now. Very proud of that. I'm not sure how much I had to do with it, but helping him get his start in real estate is something I'm incredibly proud of. Eric and I went to Bellarmine and played baseball together. He left a job at Chase Bank to come work with me. And I remember sitting right here downtown at the Chase Bank branch, having lunch in the little cafeteria, because it was like the hospital branch is Chase. And I remember holding up my phone and like scrolling the leads on the old original iPhone, right? The text message leads that were coming in on these, and was just like, hey man, I can't even call these people. They want to buy houses and I don't have enough time in a day. I was like, do you want to? And I had sold him a flip house and he had made some good money on that prior to. And so, yeah, man, it was kind of interesting. It was interesting. But the team thing, for me, you can say it's about leverage, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. It's about helping people and not giving up opportunities. So I felt like it was an insult to the people that wanted to give me an opportunity if I couldn't do it for them.
Yeah. I was lucky to be on the team a little earlier, and now I've got to watch what it's grown into. And just for any listeners out there, it's the number one team in Louisville. It's been very impressive to see what the team's become. And I wanted to ask you about this. I was thinking about this the other day. Do you ever think about all the agents you've helped and like how many successful agents you've built? And like, I mean, it's just part of the real estate industry. Agents leave brokerages or go other places, but like, I feel like you've created this web in Louisville of agents that learned from you, became successful, and now they're spread out across the city.
Yeah, there's some of that. But we've lost very few. We've retained the majority of anybody who's ever worked with us. You know, the funny thing is, Ryan, you did start quite early in the grand story, right? But the truth is that was 6 or 7 years in at that point, even though it was still early. That was very early. You were one of the very first of 2.0 is what I like to call, right? Because that first team was 5 agents. We did 360 transactions for like $65 million in production in 2015. That was right before we launched Remax Premier Properties. So that was incredible. And then we restarted. You know, Matt Hoagland came to work for us right after we launched the brokerage. He was telling me the other day, you know, he was agent number 6 or something at RPP. Pretty incredible. And he's here with us, one of the top team leads in the brokerage, you know, quite a number of years later. So, you know, the impact is really important to me. I don't really try to like quantify it so much. But it is nice to know, right, that if you work hard and try to make the right decisions, do the right thing by people, whether it be agents or clients alike, that it is appreciated. And one thing I've noticed since we've really stepped up our social media game is that so many more people are vocal to me about it. And I didn't know that these people had these opinions. You know, I presumed I had a decent reputation, but it has been very fulfilling to hear it vocalized by so many of my colleagues.
So it's agents reaching out to you?
Yeah. Sending me notes, DMs, like responding, comments, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's definitely cool.
I think that's about all we got for segment number 2 here, folks. We're going to be coming back right after the break on Talk Radio 1080. I'm not going to butcher it this time. Real news, real talk, real estate, The Jay Pitt Show. And we're back, folks. Welcome back to The Jay Pitt Show on Talk Radio 1080. I'm your host, Jay Pitts. Segment number 3 coming at you. Ryan, what we got?
Well, we're about 2 months into the year. We're starting to see some trends in the real estate space, kind of where they're headed. You can almost even somewhat see where it's going the rest of the year, although things can change. So let's talk about this article. Yahoo Finance in December 2022 released 5 real estate trends that are primed to dominate in 2023. Let's go through them, see if they hold up or if they don't. They said they're primed to dominate, so they felt pretty confident about this. So let's go through them. Number 1, finally, there will be more inventory.
Well, I think we talked in the first segment that is not exactly showing to be true here in the Louisville market. Now, I won't speak for the nation, for the whole nation. I do think that there are certain like overheated markets. San Francisco, for sure, that wasn't really overheated, but it has a ton of inventory. Seattle, you know, some places like Austin, Texas have seen. I think it's important to understand that percentage increases as reported by news outlets may look substantial,
There's a reason everybody uses percentage increases.
But when you increase a very, 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 very small number by 300%, it's still a small number.
Right.
Right. So I think it drives a narrative. So be very careful. I took a class at Bellarmine that was designed to help you spot misleading statistics. I don't remember the title of the course. It was like a freshman focus course or something. It was really interesting, actually. Yeah. And it did say that be leery of quoted percentage increase or decrease statistics because they're can be so wildly misleading. I will say again here we have less inventory than we had in 2022. Period. So it's not true here, and I don't think it's coming. I don't think it is substantial enough to be finally exclamation point. There will be more inventory, and number one on this list. I think I'm calling fake news on this one.
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
All right, number 2 then. Housing prices are up, but sellers are making more concessions.
I think this one's true. Prices continue to go up because of the supply-demand disparity. But yeah, sellers are making more concessions. Now, the caveat is the best listings, the best of the best, there's still enough inventory for them to get incredible terms. Not just incredible prices and terms. Everything they want. Sellers have all the power on the premium listings. Right, the top 1%, top 5% of listings.
What would you describe as the premium listings?
So in Louisville right now, I would tell you probably, depending on neighborhood, anything that is within probably, I would say, 2 to 3% of that zip code's median price is well appointed, well cared for, professionally cleaned, professionally shot by a photographer, listed and represented by a credible broker, a credible listing agent or team lead. And that's premium, right? But you can tell. And it's kind of one of those things you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
And agents definitely know it, right? You know when you've got that Pottery Barn cute listing that's going up and your phone's just going to blow up. It's those. And it can be $1 million home. Football coach at University of Louisville, Scott Satterfield's former home hit the market with Kerry King at Homepage the other day, 3.5 mil, which is substantially higher than pretty much any sales we see here, right? I mean, that might be the highest price sale of the year if it goes, right? And I guarantee you they've got a lot of interest just looking at it, right? You know it when you see it.
Yeah. A lot of agents can go through the MLS and see the first 3 pictures and know, well, that's going to sell in the next 2 days with 30 offers. And that's by literally just seeing a few pictures.
That's it. And you go through the pictures at like a millisecond a piece, like boop, 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 boop.
So fast. My wife gets angry at me when we're looking at homes.
Slow down.
So I want to look at them like, you can't see everything I am?
I saw everything I needed to see.
Yeah. All right. Number 3 on this list, there is still a shortage of starter homes.
I don't know.
So what I found interesting about putting that on this list, so remember, number 1 was finally there will be more inventory. And then number 3 on the list was something about there being no inventory, which is a shortage of starter homes.
Yeah, kind of contradictory. I will submit that home purchasing for the entry-level buyer has gotten harder. Okay? Shortage of inventory is a part of that reason, but I don't know that it is the primary reason. Now, if a substantial or a larger portion of homes are currently owned by investors now than they ever have before, which is true, then it stands to reason that fewer starter homes are available. It is next to impossible to build starter home inventory with the cost of commodities, with the cost of labor, with the cost of, building materials. So there are constraints there for sure. The problem is I bet if you survey demand, okay, we've seen a much bigger drop in demand at low price levels or starter home price levels than we have at higher price levels, which means there's less pressure on the inventory that we do have. So I think this is a little bit misleading.
Some people listening to this might be thinking to themselves, well, what is a starter home? They all might have different opinions. So what's a starter home to you?
Well, it's interesting. We're going to probably talk a little bit more about this later, but like, for example, the nation's median price is like $540,000, but the typical FHA loan is around $270,000, right? FHA is a first-time home buyer's type loan that is subsidized by the federal government. So it stands to reason about $270,000. That's what you're looking at. Median price in this market, starter home, median price and below is where the definition I would give you in this market, and that's about what it is here.
Got it. Number 4 here. Rent is still going up, up, up. We talked about this a little bit on last week's episode.
Yeah, there's been some signs that rent prices are stabilizing. There's certainly been some work by the federal government to try and make housing in general more affordable. The Renters' Bill of Rights, things like that. But rents are still going up. And when you read here, as much as 6%, which is a substantially lower increase than we've seen in recent years. So, like, again, if you're just headline reading, you're going to get the wrong impression. Rent is going up, up, up. Okay, up, up, up. If the first up is 21, the second up is 22, and the third up is 23. But then you should probably say up, up, up.
Yeah.
Because 6% is nothing compared to what we've seen in recent years.
I think last episode we said, what was it in Louisville? In January, rent increased 8%.
Yeah, 8%. 8%, which is, again, fairly reasonable. If you think about that, just simply put, if you have $1,000 a month rental home and it goes up $80, I mean, $80, where can you spend, what can you do and not spend $80? So, I may sound like, I guess, a money-craving landlord here, but like, I feel like, right, if inflation is 8%, then rent prices ought to go up 8%.
Yeah, renters are in a weird spot now.
It's a tough spot, and I hate it. But, I mean,
it really is.
Hate it, but didn't create it.
Yep. All right, last one on this list, Jay. Mortgage rates should top out by summer.
I'm all off this, like
Same.
all the way off. But, rates, it's almost, I think, we've seen in recent days and week rates jump, right? After we saw rates bottom like 9 of 12 weeks with decreases, lowest rates we had seen since September of 22. I think rates have probably already topped. I think the bump you've seen here recently, which is not higher than it was 3 months ago, is the market trying to get hands on the demand that was running unimpeded, and they didn't see coming. They didn't see the January return to normal real estate buying, and they're afraid of overheating the market.
Real quick here, let's go over some trending news in the tech space. Meta verified. So Meta announced they are launching a new subscription service, which will verify Instagram and Facebook accounts. This is going to be very good for real estate agents. There's a lot of people impersonating their accounts.
Well, my comment there is you just knew as soon as Elon got away with it, that it was coming.
Yep. Bing AI. So everybody's been hearing about ChatGPT and Bing. Bing's AI bot tells reporters it wants to be alive, steal nuclear codes, and create deadly virus. So that's something to look at.
Garbage in, garbage out. There's some angry coder somewhere that baked that into the cake.
Yeah, I don't know. Just an AI saying it wants to be alive. That's how every bad movie starts. And then last one here, Twitter two-factor authentication change. So Twitter announced that if you're not paying for Twitter Blue, I believe is what it's called, you will not be able to use text two-factor authentication anymore. You'll have to use an authentication app, which actually is safer, but there's a lot of people not happy that they have to pay to use text message two-factor authentication.
I mean, I could see they're trying to bake value into the Blue service. Like, it saved them for the most part. They were pretty much cash flow negative, pouring cash out when Elon took it over. I can't believe he actually closed the deal, but I'm glad he did. Needless to say, they're trying to find value because there's a lot of people that are paying for it that are not happy.
Yeah, he said they were getting scammed out of $60 million a year, and that's for the change. But I think that's all we have right now. We'll be back on Talk Radio 1080.
And we're back, folks. Segment number 4, the Jay Pitts Show. I'm your host, Jay Pitts, right here on Talk Radio 1080. Got through a little news, little chat, little statistics. I think we're going to go a little subjective, little high-minded for you here in the last segment of the day. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, we ended last segment talking about some trending news with Meta, Twitter, and the AI chatbot wanting to be alive. But, I want to ask you something, Jay. So just non-real estate question here.
Yeah.
We're going to do this probably every show too, or see how it goes. Just asking a general question.
Put me on the spot.
All right. If you could say one sentence with which the whole world would hear, what would it be?
This is a tough one. I saw this. Ryan did share this question with me. I shouldn't say he's putting me on the spot, but he is kind of putting me on the spot. I thought about this. I'm like, God, that's crazy. That everyone would hear. Everyone in the whole world. Like, it can't be too simple. It can't be too complex. It has to be one sentence.
I think there's a couple ways you can take it too. It can be you can be serious or take it as a joke. So
I'm not taking it as a joke. I am shouldering this responsibility quite heavily, I think, because to think about it, who has ever in the history of the world got to speak one sentence that every human being? Nobody. It's never happened. I mean, okay, so does this count in writing? Because maybe.
No, I don't think writing counts.
I mean, so who it comes closest? It's got to be in recent times, right? Because of technology. I thought about this. I thought about President's State of the Union address, the Pope, something. Who do you think has spoken, real quick, before I give you my answer, who do you think has spoken a sentence that has been heard by the most people? Is it the national anthem at the Super Bowl?
Well, I'd say it's probably the national anthem at the FIFA World Cup. They had more viewers than the Super Bowl.
The World Cup. So, or the Olympic opening ceremonies or something. I don't know, but they don't really speak there. Anyway, I took this pretty seriously, man. All right, so here's what I'm going to hit you with. I'm going to say it's pretty simple. And as you can tell probably from the first 2 episodes of this show, my father looms pretty large, right, in my life. He was my biggest mentor, and he's full of, little quips and sayings. And so this is kind of an expansion on something he told me at a very pivotal moment in my life. In life, it's not where you are that matters, but who you're with that determines your happiness. And so here's what that means to me. And I'll repeat it one more time. In life, it's not where you are that matters, but who you're with that determines your happiness. So Ryan and I share a hometown. We talked about that, at length in the first episode. I thought, and I told you I was in the mortgage business. I was working for my dad's team. I was getting a bunch of loans from them. All my friends were back there having kids, and I saw their lives, and I was a little bit jealous of that. And I thought I wanted to move back home. Right. But my wife, my lovely wife, is from Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, a much larger place even than Louisville, Cincinnati. And she wanted no part of living in a small town. Now, E-Town's going to be big. And I'm sure we're going to talk about the Blue Oval soon. But E-Town's going to be big here in a few years, like 100,000 plus population. That's no joke. That's happening. But that wasn't what E-Town was, 15 years ago. And so I kept saying to him, I was frustrated because I couldn't get her. I'm a pretty persuasive individual, right? I pride myself on having some influence. And here, the person that meant the most to me in the world, right? I didn't have any kids at the time. I wanted to move home, start a family, right? And I could do what I was already doing, right? I could expand on it. And she was just like, no, I can't do it. And not even a maybe. She was like, I know myself. Like, this isn't what we said we were going to do. And so I told my dad, and he said, look, it's not where you are. It's who you're with. He says, so basically he's telling me, son, don't be an idiot. You got this unbelievable human being that has pledged her life to you. And you're gonna put pressure on that because you want to move an hour up the road?
Yeah, I was going to say 45 minutes, really.
An hour, bro. Like, what are you doing?
Some people in cities like Atlanta commute that far for work every day.
So, I've had opportunities at times, not anything we really need to talk to, but like, to move or to go or to whatever. And I've always just stayed with that. Like, it's not where you are, man. It's who you're with.
Yeah,
that's what matters.
I really like that quote because it applies to every little aspect of life, whether it is work or it's family or it's hobbies you enjoy doing. It applies to everything.
Well, and I think about, and I'm not going to make a values judgment or judge anyone, but the trend in our generations, right? I'm millennial generation. I'm the oldest millennial, so I'm on the border between millennial and Gen X. But as the generations progress, the values, it seems, on family and things like that are becoming less, right? And to me, like, this is where I'm at in life. I have 3 young kids. No judgment to anyone who doesn't want children, but I can't imagine my life without them. I can't imagine what I would do with myself. I can't imagine finding things important, right? And I just think in the end, right, these people, these individuals, these human beings in my life are going to define my happiness, right? And they're going to disappoint me. No doubt, right? They're going to disappoint me. They're going to hurt me. They're going to leave me expecting more from them at times because no individual is perfect. My wife's not going to be perfect. She's going to make mistakes. She's going to upset me. I'm going to do the same to her and to them. But who you're with, to me, right? I'd rather be miserable with them than whatever I could be without them.
Yeah, that's great, Jay. I love that quote, and
got a little deep. Sorry.
Like I said, no, I mean, I think it applies to a lot of things in life, but so I'll give you my one sentence though.
Yeah, I want to hear.
The whole world could hear it, and I got a little something for the Card fans out there.
Okay.
Louisville won the 2013 national championship. Hang the banner. That would be mine.
No, number one. No. See, okay. I wondered if this was ever going to come up. We are going to talk local current events for sure. I'm not a fan of the banner. I like Josh. Okay, I like the new AD. He's a running partner with, I don't know if you guys know this, but he's an avid runner. The guy runs marathons. He's really talented.
I didn't know that, but I find that interesting.
So a guy that we both may know, well, at least he's from E-Town, another E-Town guy by the name of Chad Youngblood, who's an incredible runner. His son Eli, I coached in basketball. We are close, and he and Josh are running partners. And, so I don't know Josh, but I've heard he's just a great dude. And I know he took what he could get, but I'd rather not.
Yeah, it's almost like a bigger slap in the face.
I mean, the NCAA has given us anything they've given us, we've taken, and we've taken enough. I don't need a backhanded compliment that we were the postseason coaches poll #1 or whatever, AP #1 unanimous. I don't. What does it even say? I don't even know what it says.
I think it just says #1 coaches poll.
Does it say coaches poll?
I think. But it was great to see a great crowd at the game, and Louisville won by 10, which not many people expected. So that was great.
No, I'm with it. I haven't been able to do much basketball at the Yum Center lately. It doesn't work with my life quite as much. Football is much easier. We will be out. We will be out in the fall watching Jeff Brom bring us back to glory. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So you mentioned local events, some local events going around Louisville this weekend. Dinos under Louisville. Dinos will take over Louisville Mega Cavern. See, when I have kids, I'm going to find stuff like that I think could maybe be cool and take them to that. So it's also for me.
Yeah.
Maker Place Workshop, chaotic art creation. I guess this is, if you're on TikTok ever, you see where they put the paint in the bucket, put a hole in it, and swing it around. I think they're going to teach you how to do that.
Dude, I got to tell you, parenting hack, right? The zoo and the science center have a joint membership right? And the membership is like the equivalent of like visiting twice in a year. That's how much the membership costs. But you get both, because I'm telling you, like, the worst months of the year, okay, are like right now. Like, we've got 70-degree temperatures outside. That's great. It's wonderful. But it's usually like gray and rainy and like 41 or 36 degrees. And you've been stuck in the house all winter with young kids. You got to get them out, man. And you can burn 3 hours until nap time, and it's like glorious.
Seems like they never get old of it either, or get tired of it.
No, it's not at all. And the zoo air, like, put them in the stroller, roll them around the zoo, they're asleep before you know it. It's great.
Beautiful.
It's great.
That's great parenting advice. You got the Tailspin Festival, Ale Festival, March 4th at Bowman Field. All paid attendees get a souvenir tasting glass. There's food. I think I remember last year it was like incredibly windy at that. So hopefully it's not this year. Louisville Restaurant Week, it's the last day of that. And then Louisville Arcade Expo.
U of L baseball opened 4-0.
That's good.
Sweep on the first weekend. Went out there, took Colton and my son Preston out, and got to watch a little U of L baseball. And then they picked up a win on their first midweek game. There's I think just a day ago. So pretty exciting stuff.
Pretty good crowd.
Pretty good, not great, but decent. I mean, it was a little cold. We went out last Saturday, so it was one of the colder days of the weekend. But you know, it's baseball, man. I mean, it's baseball weather, and you know me. Like it's like golf for you. Like St. Andrews, like chilly winds, like rain whipping around. You don't care.
Well, I'll go play. I'm not going to watch golf in that.
All right, man. Well, I think that just about does it for episode 2. We really appreciate you joining in with us here on this ride. We're going to be back every week, Saturdays 9 to 10, Sundays 6 to 7 a.m., right here on Talk Radio 1080. I am your host, Jay Pitts, for Ryan Harris, The Jay Pitts Show, real news, real talk, real estate. We'll see you next week.